Lions hope Kerryon Johnson breaks recent run of RB disappointments. It's okay to be skeptical. If you're a Detroit Lions fan, it's almost expected given how many times you've been burned before. There was Jahvid Best, and Jim Schwartz's infatuation with his YouTube videos. There was Mikel Leshoure, and that great week of training camp he had, until the hype shriveled up along with his Achilles tendon. 3 years ago, it was Ameer Abdullah and then defensive coordinator Teryl Austin stoking the fire with a passing comment that tackling Abdullah was like grasping at air. None of the Lions' last 3 high draft pick running backs has amounted to much, and 2 of those 3 are already on to their second careers. But that didn't stop the Lions from playing a 4th round of running back roulette in this year's draft, and that hasn't stopped the hype from starting to build about Kerryon Johnson this fall. Johnson, the Lions' second-round pick in April's draft, took the very first rep at the team's lone open OTA practice of spring so far, and he has done his best to impress his coaches and teammates at a position that everyone admits can't truly be judged until the pads come on. He's a guy that's a 3-down player, running backs coach David Walker said this week. At Auburn he showed he can play on 1st, 2nd and 3rd down. He showed he can play in all situations, which was important for us. Very productive in a very good league. So you see the physical qualities, the flexibility in terms of how you can use a guy like that, and then you have a chance to meet him and see how smart and driven he is. He's kind of the type of player that fits with our program because he's smart, he showed he's productive, and then he has flexibility in terms of 1st, 2nd, 3rd downs. The Lions would like to believe they're in a spot where they don't have to use Johnson as an every-down workhorse this early in his career. They signed LeGarrette Blount in free agency to add a physical element to the offense, and Abdullah and Theo Riddick are still on the roster from last year. But having options doesn't necessarily equate to having a great running game, and the Lions have certainly lacked the latter in recent years. They ranked last in the league in rushing last season, are worst in the NFL in that category since 2014, and thought enough of Johnson to make the unusual move of trading up for a running back. As noted before, NFL teams have traded up for just 5 running backs in the first 3 rounds of the last 4 drafts: Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook and Johnson. No one is predicting Johnson equals any of those backs' outputs this fall, at least not yet. But the Lions also didn't trade up for Johnson hoping he'd be the next Kevin Smith, another top 3-round choice in the Lions' recent pantheon of mediocre backs. I've grew up in the Southeast, know a bunch of people from the Southeast, and I've watched a lot of SEC football over the years, offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter said. It sure was fun to watch him compete on those Saturdays when we're maybe making a road trip or at the hotel doing whatever we do. Came to respect him as a competitor, and we're going to throw him in here and see if he can get better, see how he does. Johnson led the SEC in rushing last season despite missing time with an assortment of injuries, and the Lions already have talked about using him in different ways as a pro. At Auburn, Johnson ran mostly between the tackles, occasionally out of a wildcat set, and in an offense that passed the ball less than 40% of the time. General Manager Bob Quinn has said the Lions, a pass-first team that threw the ball 58% of the time last year, will use Johnson more to run outside, and Walker doesn't believe it will be an issue for Johnson. He's run every scheme in terms of inside zone blocking, outside zone blocking, gap scheme runs, lead scheme runs, Walker said. So he has that in his background, so teaching him how to run a certain play won't be the hard part. Maybe kind of what we want him to look at, maybe a little bit different than he has in the past, but he'll be fine in terms of this is the blocking scheme and this is how I read and react to this blocking scheme. It's been a different presentation when he was in college, but the meat and potatoes part of it is kind of the same. Walker said there are no plans to limit Johnson's playbook in any way. The general question to me is you give a kid what he can handle. And as of right now he's been able to handle everything we've thrown at him, so we'll continue throwing it at him and seeing how he progresses, he said. More likely, The only things that will hold Johnson back as a rookie are whatever shortcomings he has in the ancillary parts of his game, like pass blocking and receiving out of the backfield. So far, Johnson has earned high marks there as well. He's already shown he's got good ball skills. Showed that in college, and he's already made some plays out on our practice field that showed that he's got good ball skills. So that won't be an issue, Walker said. Which is why, with the season still 3 months away, the hype train is just beginning to roll. Contact Dave Burkett, burkett@freepress.com. Follow him on Twitter @DaveBurkett. Download our Lions Extra app for free on Apple and Android.